They came for a aggressive If you are not a heretic, then declare your city of origin. Leave a comment, a like, and subscribe to the Emperor's Glory. At the conclusion, rate this tale from 0 to 10. The Emperor protects. The prayer candles flickered as Sister Celestine finished her evening recitation, their wax pooling on the worn stone floor of the Schola Sanctum. Through the stained glass windows, the twin moons of Sanctum Tertius cast an ethereal glow across the dormitory where 30 young novitiates slept peacefully. Among them, Miriam clutched her Aquila pendant, her dreams filled with visions of serving the Emperor's hopeful will. The first sign something was wrong came as a low humming that made the ancient walls vibrate.
Sister Celestine's enhanced hearing, gifted by decades of neural conditioning, picked up the frequency long before normal humans could detect it. Her bolt pistol was in her hands before her conscious mind registered the threat. High Commander Zarthek of the Devourer Swarm clicked his mandibles in satisfaction as his infiltration pods settled silently in the school courtyard. The humans had grown complacent on this peaceful agri-world, their defenses focused on external threats rather than surgical strikes. His intelligence caste had identified this facility as a training ground for their warrior priests. Eliminating the young ones would save countless drones in future conflicts. Phase 1 complete, he chittered into his biocommunicator. Beginning specimen acquisition. His warriors moved with practiced efficiency. Their carapaced forms flowing through ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels like living nightmares. Each carried paralytic injectors and containment pods. The young humans would serve excellently as test subjects for their adaptation protocols. Sister Celestine felt the wrongness in her bones, that sixth sense that had kept her alive through 17 campaigns across the sector. She activated her voxcaster, but only static answered. Communications were jammed. Her power armor's machine spirit whispered warnings as motion detectors triggered throughout the complex. In Dormitory 7, 15-year-old Miriam woke to a sound like rustling leaves. She sat up in her narrow cot, rubbing sleep from her eyes. The emergency lumens were dark, but something moved in the shadows between the beds. Something with too many legs and eyes that reflected moonlight like black, fearful mirrors. The creature pounced with inhuman speed, but Miriam's reflexes, honed by years of combat training, saved her life. She rolled aside as razor-sharp claws shredded her mattress. Her fearful scream pierced the night, instantly waking her dormmates. Chaos erupted as more Xenos emerged from the darkness. The Novitiates grabbed prayer books and training staffs, forming defensive circles as they'd been taught. But these weren't practice drills. These were Tyrannid-spawn creatures with acid-dripping maws and diamond-hard chitin that deflected their improvised weapons. Sister Celestine burst through the dormitory doors like an avenging angel. Her bolt pistol barked thunder, each blessed round exploding inside alien flesh with devastating effect. The lead creature, a warrior form the size of a grizzly bear, turned toward her with predatory interest. "Get behind me, children," she commanded, her voice carrying absolute authority even in the chaos. "The Emperor protects." The creature lunged, its scythe-like claws whistling through air where her head had been a microsecond before. Celestine's powered gauntlet caught its throat, servo motors whining as she lifted the 200-pound monstrosity off the ground. Her chainsword roared to life, blessed adamantine teeth chewing through alien bone. "Impossible!" Commander Zarthek hissed as combat reports flooded his consciousness through the swarm link. "A single human warrior is decimating my assault cast?" He watched through combat eyes as Sister Celestine carved through his forces with impossible skill. Her movements were too fast, too precise. When claws raked across her power armor, it sparked but held. When she fired her bolt pistol, his warriors simply ceased to exist in explosions of sanctified death. But Zarthek had not achieved his position through reckless assault. He signaled his specialists, psyker hunter forms bred specifically to neutralize human war witches. Their neural disruptors would overwhelm any mental defenses this warrior priest possessed. The attack came as a wave of psychic agony that would have crippled a normal human. Sister Celestine staggered, her vision blurring as alien thoughts invaded her mind. Visions of endless consumption, of worlds stripped bare, of humanity dissolving into the swarm's collective hunger. "Faith is my shield," she whispered, gripping her Aquila pendant. The blessed symbol grew warm against her palm. His light, hopeful. The psychic assault shattered against her unwavering belief, like waves against a stone cliff. Her bolt pistol spoke again, and the psyker hunters collapsed, their augmented brains liquefied by blessed ammunition. Young Miriam watched in awe as Sister Celestine fought with superhuman grace and fury. When one alien got too close to the huddled novitiates, Celestine moved faster than seemed possible, her chainsword separating the creature's head from its torso in a spray of yellow ichor. "How many more?" Miriam asked, clutching her Aquila pendant just as the sister did. "Doesn't matter," Celestine replied, reloading with practiced efficiency. "They made one fatal mistake." "What's that, sister?" Celestine's smile was terrible to behold. They threatened innocence under the Emperor's protection. Commander Zarthek felt something alien to his species, doubt. His assault had been perfectly planned, executed with surgical precision. Yet this single human had eliminated 12 of his finest warriors without sustaining significant injury. Her equipment was primitive compared to Tau technology, crude beside Eldar craftsmanship, but it functioned with impossible efficiency. He deployed his reserve force, sending every remaining warrior through the breach. If overwhelming force wouldn't work, he would fall back and orbital strike the complex. But something in his genetic memory, inherited from countless devoured foes, whispered warnings about humans and their inexplicable refusal to accept defeat. The warning came too late. The silence that followed the obliteration of the Tyrannid hunting pack stretched for exactly 13 seconds. Sister Mariana counted each one, her bolt pistol still smoking in her grip while her chainsword purred with happy satisfaction. The Xenos biomass scattered across the training ground told its own story. Chitin fragments embedded in rockcrete walls, acidic ichor eating through metal benches, and the lingering stench of burned, disgusted alien flesh. Novitiate Lyra remained frozen behind the combat dummy where Mariana had thrown her, wide eyes taking in the surprised carnage. The girl had never seen a battle sister in full combat doctrine before. Most novitiates only witnessed training exercises or ceremonial displays. This was something else entirely. "Are they?" Lyra's voice cracked. "Are they all dead?" Mariana kicked the severed head of what had been the pack's synapse creature. It rolled across the blood-slicked floor with a wet sound. Tyrannids don't die like we understand it, child. They simply stop functioning when separated from the hive mind, or when their biological systems fail catastrophically. She gestured at the scattered remains. These have definitely stopped functioning. The training ground's automatic systems hummed to life, beginning their serious, grim task of cleaning and sterilization. Servo-skulls emerged from wall alcoves, their mechanical eyes scanning for biological hazards, while industrial-grade purifiers prepared to scour every trace of Xenos contamination. "How did you know they were coming?" Lyra pulled herself upright, her training robes torn, but her hopeful spirit intact. "I didn't hear anything until you shouted." 23 years of active combat teaches you to listen for what isn't there. Mariana holstered her bolt pistol and began the ritual cleansing of her chainsword. The servo-skulls maintaining the perimeter went silent. The ambient noise from the ventilation system changed pitch. Small things that become large warnings when you fought the Great Devourer long enough. The heavy doors to the training ground burst open, admitting 3 more battle sisters in full power armor. Their weapons were drawn and ready, having responded to the sound of bolter fire. Sister Superior Helena led them, her storm bolters sweeping the area for threats that no longer existed. "Sirius, report. Tyrannid infiltration pack, 6 organisms, gaunts and a synapse creature." Mariana's voice carried the crisp efficiency of a veteran. "They bypassed outer defenses using ventilation shafts. Target appears to have been Novitiate Lyra." Helena's helmet turned toward the girl. Why would they specifically target a novitiate? Unknown. But they demonstrated unusual tactical coordination for such a small group. The synapse creature held back while the gaunts probed defenses. When I engaged, it attempted a flanking maneuver, while the remaining gaunts created a distraction. Sister Cordelia, the Order's chief apothecary, knelt beside one of the larger corpses. Her medical auspex hummed as it analyzed the remains. "These aren't standard tyrannid organisms. The genetic markers show extensive adaptation. They've been modified for fearful stealth infiltration." "Adapted how?" Helena's question carried an edge of concern. "Reduced bioluminescence, enhanced auditory dampening organs, modified scent glands to mask their pheromone signature." Cordelia's auspex continued its grim catalog. Someone or something has been breeding these specifically for covert operations. The implication hit them all simultaneously. Standard tyrannid tactics involved overwhelming force and endless numbers. Stealth was antithetical to their nature. Unless the hive mind had learned something new about human defenses. "There could be more," fearful, Sister Valentina observed, her heavy flamer ready despite the immediate threat being eliminated. "If they've developed infiltration protocols, other packs could already be inside our walls." Novitiate Lyra stepped forward, her initial shock giving way to the hopeful determination that had earned her acceptance into the Order's militant. "Sister Superior, if I may, why me? I'm nobody special, just another novitiate trying to prove worthy of the power armor." Helena studied the girl for a long moment. "Your humility does you credit, child. But perhaps the Xenos see something we have yet to recognize." She turned to Mariana. "You will escort Novitiate Lyra to the sanctuary. She remains under protection until we understand why the Tyrannids marked her specifically." "Sister Superior," Mariana began, but Helena raised a gauntleted hand. "This is not a request, sister.
The Great Devourer does not waste resources on meaningless targets. If they wanted this particular novitiate, we must discover why before they make another attempt. The automatic systems finished their initial cleansing, but the stench of disgusted alien death lingered. Servo skulls continued their methodical documentation, recording every fragment of chitin and drop of ichor for later analysis by the Ordo Xenos. As they prepared to leave the training ground, Lyra touched Mariana's arm. "Sister, how did you move so fast? I've trained with combat servitors, but you were faster than their reflexes."
"Faith accelerates the faithful," Mariana replied simply. "When the Emperor's enemies threaten his servants, we become instruments of his wrath. Speed, strength, endurance, these are gifts granted to those who serve without question. But how does that actually work?" Mariana paused in her weapon maintenance. The question was typical of novitiates, always seeking mechanical explanations for divine mysteries. "You've studied the Lectitio Divinitatis?" "Of course." "Then you know that faith is not merely belief, but a fundamental force of the universe. When properly channeled through ritual, prayer, and absolute conviction, it manifests as measurable physical phenomena." Mariana's voice took on the cadence of instruction. "The Tyranids rely purely on biological efficiency. They cannot comprehend or counter divine intervention."
Sister Helena's Vox communicator crackled to life, interrupting the theological discussion. "Sister Superior Helena, report to the command center immediately. We have a situation." "Understood. Mariana, take the Novitiate to Sanctuary and maintain watch. Cordelia, I want a full biological analysis of these remains within the hour. Valentina, begin security sweeps of all ventilation systems." As the sisters dispersed to their assigned tasks, Mariana guided Lyra through the monastery's sacred corridors. The girl remained unusually quiet, processing what she had witnessed. "Sister," Lyra finally spoke as they approached the sanctuary's reinforced doors, "when you killed those creatures, you seemed to enjoy it." Mariana stopped walking. "Explain." "Your expression, the way you smiled when your chainsword cut through that last one, it wasn't just duty or faith. You looked happy." And does that trouble you?" Lyra considered this carefully. "I don't know. Should it?" The Emperor's enemies exist to be destroyed. Finding joy in their destruction is not merely acceptable, it is righteous. Mariana's smile held no warmth. "When you take your final vows and receive your power armor, you will understand. The Xenos, the heretic, the mutant, they are cancers upon his creation. Their elimination brings the same happy satisfaction as purging any other disease." They reached the sanctuary doors, their surfaces covered with protective wards and purity seals. The massive barriers slid open at Mariana's approach, revealing the chamber beyond, a place of meditation and protection where novitiates could find calm, even in times of war. "Sister," Lyra said as they entered the sacred space, "do you think they'll come back? The Tyranids, I mean." "They always come back," Mariana replied, checking the sanctuary's defensive systems. "That is their nature. But we are battle sisters of the Adeptus Sororitas. Let them come." The sanctuary's doors sealed behind them with the finality of a tomb, but Lyra felt safer than she had since the attack began. Outside, the monastery buzzed with activity as sisters prepared for whatever revelation awaited in the command center.
Inside, 2 servants of the emperor waited in readiness for the next wave of his enemies to test their faith. The first reports arrived at dawn. Static-filled transmissions from outer perimeter stations that cut off mid-sentence. Then nothing but silence from the agricultural sectors. Sister Superior Magdalena stood before the tactical display in the cathedral's war room, her scarred face illuminated by the red glow of threat indicators spreading across the planetary map like a fearful infection. "How many?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of 20 years leading the Convent of Sacred Mercy. Unknown, Sister Superior," reported Novitiate Luna, her young face pale but hopeful, determined. "The bioscanners are overwhelmed. The machine spirits, fearful, scream in pain when they attempt to count the Xeno swarm." Magdalena nodded grimly. The Tyranid splinter fleet hadn't been detected by the orbital sentries. Another failure of Imperial technology that she would investigate later, if there was a later. For now, thousands of chittering nightmares were flooding across the fertile plains of Sanctum Tertius, consuming everything in their path. "What word from the PDF command?" she inquired. Though she suspected the answer. "Colonel Vex requests immediate evacuation assistance for his command staff," Luna reported, unable to hide her disgust. "He claims tactical withdrawal to preserve experienced leadership." The Battle Sister's jaw tightened. Typical guard officer mentality. Save the brass while the enlisted died. "Signal Colonel Vex that the Sisters of Battle do not retreat. We advance until victory is achieved or the Emperor calls us home." Through the cathedral's stained glass windows, she could see streams of civilians fleeing toward the capital city. Farmers, merchants, children, all racing ahead of a consuming tide that turned verdant fields into barren, disgusted boneyards. The evacuation ships wouldn't arrive for 3 days. Someone had to buy them that desperate time. "Sister Superior," called out another voice. Sister Cordelia approached, her flamer blessed and ready. "The novitiate classes request permission to join the defense." Magdalena looked at the eager young faces surrounding her. Barely out of their progenitor training, most had never seen real combat. By Imperial doctrine, they weren't ready for battlefield deployment. But doctrine was written by men who had never faced a Tyranid swarm. "How many combat-rated sisters do we have?" 43 fully ordained, Cordelia replied, including Celestians and support staff. Against millions of bioforms. The odds were acceptable by Sororitas standards. Hopeless enough to guarantee glorious martyrdom. Slim enough that the Emperor might grant them victory. Magdalena made her decision with the certainty that had carried her through 200 battles. "All novitiate classes are hereby elevated to full sister status under combat emergency protocols. They will carry blessed weapons and, serious, die as daughters of the Emperor if necessary." She paused, studying the young faces. "But we do not intend to die today. We intend to remind these Xenos why mankind rules the galaxy." The preparation took less than an hour. Ancient rites were compressed, sacred oils applied, hastily but with proper reverence. The cathedral's armory yielded up its treasures. Bolt pistols that had served for centuries. Chainswords consecrated in the blood of martyrs. Flame units blessed by 3 different cardinals. As they armed themselves, reports continued streaming in. The agricultural zones had fallen completely. The mining complex on the eastern continent had fearful, Orbital reconnaissance showed a black tide flowing inexorably toward population centers, leaving only stripped soil in its wake. "Sister Superior," Luna called out, now clad in makeshift battle gear. "Long-range augers detect massive bioforms approaching the capital, things the size of hab blocks." Carnifexes, most likely. Living siege engines that could tear through fortifications like paper. Magdalena had faced their kind before on Mordian 7, watched them reduce an entire hive spire to rubble in minutes. But she had also seen what concentrated bolt fire could do to their exoskeletons. "Deploy in standard purification formation," she ordered. "Sisters Cordelia and Beatrice, take the Blessed Flamers to the primary approaches. Celestian Squad will provide anti-armor support. All others, prepare for close engagement." They moved out through the cathedral's main doors into the morning light. The great square before the building was already filling with refugees from the outer districts. Men, women, children, all looking to the sisters for hopeful salvation they weren't sure they could provide. An old woman, bent with age but fierce-eyed, grabbed Magdalena's arm as she passed. "Sister, my grandson is still out there in the grain fields. Please." Magdalena gently removed the woman's grip. "If the Emperor wills it, grandmother, he will find his way to safety. But today we fight for all of Sanctum Tertius. Pray that we prove hopeful of his protection." The first contact came at the industrial district's edge. A small probe organism, no larger than a hunting hound but armored in chitin plates. It skittered between abandoned warehouses, testing defenses. Reporting back to the hive mind through synaptic links humanity barely understood. Sister Beatrice's flamer caught it mid-leap. The creature's fearful death shriek echoed across empty streets, a sound that raised primitive fears in every human who heard it. But it also served as a signal flare to its larger kin. The ground began to fearful vibrate. "Contact front," Cordelia reported through the Vox network. "Multiple small bioforms advancing through Sector 7. Estimated Emperor's Throne. There's hundreds of them. Hormagaunts. Fast, vicious, designed to overwhelm defenders through sheer numbers. Their scything claws could tear through flak armor like cloth, but they were individually fragile. Exactly the kind of enemy bolt rounds were designed to stop." "Steady, sisters," Magdalena transmitted. "Let them come to us. Concentrated fire. Make each shot count." They emerged from the ruins like a fearful, living flood. Pale, chitinous forms moving with inhuman grace, their eyeless heads weaving as they scented human prey. Their talons sparked against broken concrete as they bounded forward, closing the distance with fearful speed. The sisters opened fire as one. Bolt shells exploded in yellow-white flashes, sending ichor and chitin fragments flying. The front ranks of aliens collapsed, only to be trampled by those behind them. For every creature that fell, two more seemed to take its desperate place. "They're not stopping," Luna observed, her voice confident, steady despite the carnage approaching them. "Even stepping on their own dead." "Xenos have no understanding of honor," Magdalena replied, putting another bolt round through a particularly large specimen's head. "They know only hunger, but we know faith." A group of the creatures broke through their firing line, leaping over their fallen kin with predatory grace. Sister Cordelia met them with her chainsword, the blessed blade screaming as it bit through alien flesh. Another sister went down under a swarm of claws, her death cry echoing off empty buildings. But for every sister that fell, dozens of aliens died. And unlike the Tyranids, humans understood sacrifice. Each death bought time, space, tactical advantage. The creatures might overwhelm individual defenders, but they couldn't break the formation's discipline. The tide began to turn when the larger organisms arrived. A Carnifex, exactly as Magdalena had predicted, rounded the corner of a massive hab block. Its fearful biocannons were already charging. Electrical discharges playing across its carapace. Behind it came more creatures, warriors with living weapons, raveners that burrowed up through the street itself. "Celestians, priority target!" Magdalena ordered, marking the Carnifex with her auspex. "All other units, suppress the smaller organisms. Do not let them reach close combat range." The battle became a symphony of destruction. Bolt pistols barked, flamers roared, chainswords screamed. Human voices raised in confident hymns of war competed with alien, fearful shrieks of hunger. The air filled with smoke, cordite, and the metallic scent of spilled ichor. A warrior organism, taller than any human and armed with living cannons, targeted Sister Beatrice with a spine salvo. She rolled aside, came up firing, put 3 bolt rounds into its thorax before its claws found her. Her death bought time for Luna to flank the creature, to drive her chainsword deep into its brain case. The Carnifex was proving harder to stop. Anti-armor rounds sparked off its thick hide, leaving only shallow wounds. Its biocannons swept the battlefield, each shot reducing ancient stonework to dust. One blast caught a sister directly, leaving only a shadow on the wall behind her. "We need heavier weapons," Cordelia reported, her flamer running low on promethium. Magdalena studied the tactical situation. They were desperate, barely, but this was just the probe assault. The main swarm would arrive within hours, and they'd already lost a quarter of their effective strength. Time to implement desperate measures. "Fall back to the cathedral," she ordered. "Prepare the final sanctification." They retreated in good order, laying down suppressive fire as they withdrew. The aliens followed, but cautiously now. The hive mind was learning to confident respect human firepower, adapting its tactics. That was the fearful horror of fighting Tyranids. They improved with every engagement. Inside the cathedral, hopeful ancient weapons came to light. Meltaguns that had served in the age of apostasy. A plasma cannon whose machine spirit hummed with barely contained power. Most importantly, the building itself was a confident fortress, its walls blessed and reinforced over centuries of faithful service. "How long can we hold?" Luna asked, checking her remaining ammunition. Magdalena looked up at the cathedral's soaring architecture, at the stained glass windows depicting the Emperor's glory, at the altar where she had sworn her sacred oaths. This place had stood for 3,000 years. It would not fall to alien hunger while she drew breath. "As long as necessary," she replied. "The Emperor protects." Outside, the main swarm was finally arriving. The ground shook under the tread of biotitans. The sky darkened with flying organisms. And somewhere in that tide of flesh and hunger, the hive mind focused its attention on the aggressive humans who refused to be consumed. The real battle was about to begin. The chamber erupted into chaos as Sister Celestine's bolter sang its aggressive litany of death. The first Vorth warrior collapsed, chitinous armor shattered by blessed ammunition. Purple ichor splashed across ancient stone as Xenos mandibles clicked in surprise and rage. "Purge the unclean!" Celestine roared, her voice echoing through the temple halls like thunder from the Emperor's own throne. She rolled behind a marble pillar as return fire sizzled overhead, bioplasma eating through stone like acid. Ambassador Kythara pressed herself against the wall, her feline features frozen in shock. The human female moved like liquid death, each motion precise and brutal. This was no mere soldier. This was something far more terrifying. The Vorth squad leader, a massive specimen with 4 arms and gleaming bioweapons, hissed commands in their clicking language. 8 remaining warriors began flanking maneuvers, their movements disturbingly coordinated. "Fascinating," whispered Tech Dominus Zerion from his hiding spot, servo skulls recording everything. "The subject displays remarkable tactical awareness despite emotional compromise." Sister Celestine emerged from cover, bolt pistol in one hand, chain sword roaring to life in the other. The blessed blade's teeth sang hymns of destruction as she carved through the first flanking warrior. Purple blood sprayed across her white armor, staining the sacred ceramite. "You dare threaten a daughter of the Emperor in his own house?" she snarled, ducking under bioplasma discharge. Her counterattack was poetry written in violence. 3 bolt rounds center mass, dropping another Xenos in a spray of chitin and organs. The Tau commander Kamesh watched from the gallery above, his tactical assessment algorithms surprised, struggling to process what he witnessed. This single human female was systematically dismantling a Vorth kill squad that had been terrorizing the outer sectors for months. "Impossible," he muttered into his comlink. "Individual human subjects should not possess such combat effectiveness against Vorth warrior drones." Captain Thornspike of the Vancorian Guards nodded grimly. "Never underestimate human females protecting their young, Tau. We learned that lesson the hard way." The Vorth squad leader charged, bioblades extending from all 4 arms. Sister Celestine met him head-on, her chainsword parrying 2 strikes while her bolt pistol punched holes in his thorax. The Xenos warrior was larger, stronger, faster, but he had never faced something that simply, confident, refused to die. Celestine's left shoulder guard cracked under a bioblade strike, drawing first blood. She smiled, a terrifying expression that made several watching aliens step back involuntarily. "Is that all?" She aggressively laughed, driving her chainsword up under the creature's chin. "I have faced demons in the warp itself." "You are disgusting, nothing but insects before the Emperor's wrath." The remaining Vorth warriors paused, their simple minds, surprised, struggling to comprehend this human's complete lack of fear. In their species, injury meant retreat. In their experience, all sentient creatures valued self-preservation above all else. They had never met a sister of battle. Celestine spun, her damaged armor servos whining, and opened fire on the hesitating Xenos. Bolt rounds found gaps in chitinous armor with supernatural precision. Each shot was accompanied by whispered prayers, each kill a verse in her sacred hymnal. Young Lyra crept closer to the battle, her compound eyes surprised, wide with wonder and terror. The human female was smaller than any of the watching aliens, yet she fought like a energetic force of nature unleashed. "Why doesn't she flee?" Lyra whispered to Ambassador Kithara. "She's outnumbered and wounded." The feline diplomat's ears flattened against her skull. "Because she's human, child. They don't know how to surrender." The last 3 Vorth warriors regrouped, bioweapons charging for a coordinated alpha strike. Their plasma would cook anything in the chamber to ash and bone. Victory was assured. Sister Celestine holstered her bolt pistol and reached for a sphere at her belt. She bit the activation pin with her teeth and smiled that terrible smile again. "Frag grenade," Captain Thornspike breathed. "She's going to cook herself with them." "Glory to the Emperor!" Celestine shouted, hurling the explosive directly at her own feet as she dove toward the Vorth formation. The blast shattered stone and sent alien bodies flying. When the smoke cleared, Sister Celestine stood among the wreckage, her armor cracked and bleeding from a dozen wounds. All 3 Vorth warriors lay motionless, their bioweapons permanently silenced. She turned toward young Lyra, her expression softening despite the carnage around her. "Are you injured, little one?" Lyra stared up at this blood-soaked angel of death who had somehow transformed back into her gentle teacher. "Sister Celestine, how are you still alive?" The battle sister knelt beside her student, ignoring her wounds. "The Emperor protects, child, but more importantly," she glanced meaningfully at the watching alien delegates, "no one threatens my students, ever." Ambassador Kithara approached slowly, her diplomatic training warring with genuine terror. "Sister, that was remarkable. But surely such violence was unnecessary? Couldn't this have been resolved through negotiation?" Celestine's eyes hardened. "Negotiation? They came for a child, Ambassador, a child under my protection." She gestured to the alien corpses. "This is negotiation. Effective, final, absolute." Tech Dominus Zarian's mechadendrite's word as he processed combat data. "Fascinating. The subject's performance exceeded all tactical projections. How do humans consistently achieve such results?" "Faith," Sister Celestine replied simply, helping Lyra to her feet. "Faith in the Emperor, faith in our cause, and faith that some things are worth dying for." She looked directly at each alien delegate. "That is something your species may never understand." Commander Kamesh stepped forward, his Tau honor blade lowered in calm respect. Perhaps the Tau Empire has underestimated human combat doctrine. This faith you speak of, it appears tactically significant." Captain Thornspike barked a laugh. "Tactically significant? Brother Tau, human faith moved mountains before you even crawled out of your caves. It forged an imperium spanning the galaxy, and it will burn any enemy that threatens what we protect." The chamber fell silent except for the soft whimpering of young Lyra, finally allowing herself to feel the terror of what had almost happened. Sister Celestine gathered the insectoid child in her gentle arms. Blood from her wounds staining the girl's chitinous shell. "Shh, little one, you're safe now. You're always safe with me." Ambassador Kithara watched this tender moment, her mind reeling. This same human who had butchered 8 elite warriors with terrifying efficiency now cradled an alien child with infinite gentleness. "I don't understand," she whispered. How can you be both monster and saint?" Sister Celestine looked up, her scarred face serene. "I am what humanity requires me to be, Ambassador. A teacher for the innocent, a shield for the faithful, and death incarnate for those who threaten either." She stood, still holding Lyra. "That is what makes us human. That is why we survive where others fall." Tech Dominus Zarian approached cautiously. "Sister, my medical scans indicate severe trauma. You require immediate treatment." "I require nothing but the Emperor's blessing," Celestine replied. "My wounds will heal. My duty is eternal." Commander Kamesh activated his holoprojector, displaying tactical readouts. "Sister Celestine, I formally request permission to record today's engagement for Tau Military Archives. Your methods require study." "Study all you wish, Tau, but understand this. Today you witnessed not exceptional human capability, but simply Tuesday for a daughter of the Emperor." She smiled at the shocked expressions around her. "We are all like this, every last one of us. Remember that when you make your reports." The assembled aliens exchanged glances filled with surprised, new understanding, and fearful, no small amount of fear. They had come here to evaluate human integration into galactic society. Instead, they had witnessed exactly why humanity dominated the galaxy despite being relative newcomers. As Sister Celestine carried young Lyra toward the medical bay, her voice echoed through the chamber one final time. "Class will resume tomorrow. We have much to learn about friendship across the stars." Ambassador Kaithala turned to her fellow delegates, her voice barely above a whisper. "Recommendation for my report?" Captain Thornspike playful grinned, showing far too many teeth. "Alliance, immediate and permanent alliance. Because if humans fight this hard for alien children they barely know," he gestured to the carnage around them, "imagine what they do for actual friends." The delegates nodded in confident, unanimous agreement. In the grim darkness of the far future, there was only war. But perhaps, with humans at their side, there could also be hope. Young Lyra looked back over Sister Celestine's shoulder at the alien delegates, her voice small but clear. "Thank you for coming to my school. Sister Celestine is the best teacher in the galaxy." In that moment, as blood-stained ceramite and gentle hands carried an alien child to safety, the watching delegates understood a fundamental truth about humanity. They were exactly as terrifying and wonderful as their reputation suggested. The Emperor protects, and sometimes that protection came with a chainsword and righteous fury that would burn across the stars themselves.
Angels